Are $70 games worth it? A lot of people would actually argue and say that with the way games are made these days and all of the time, effort, and resources that go into it, that a lot of people are saying that, yeah, $70 games are worth it. But I'm here to ask a question. Is it? Are they really worth it? We can all agree that video games are pretty subjective. For example, a game like Celeste, which for me is a 10 out of 10. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a 10 out of 10 for somebody else. Now, I would be willing to pay upwards of $70 for a game like Celeste, but there are other people out there who probably wouldn't even pay $20 for a game like Celeste. So with that being said, how do you come up with a price point for something so subjective? Well, you see, that's kind of the point of this video. I'm trying to see if there is a reason for games to be $70, or at least modern day future next generation games being worth $70. Hey, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe for more videos, all things Nintendo. Love to have you here. Thank you. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned how a lot of new games these days, people can justify paying $70 because, well, it costs a lot of money to make games. It's a lot of resources, time, effort, everything involved, etc., etc. Now, does that mean paying $70 for a video game or charging $70 for a video game? Does that mean that all of the millions of dollars that a lot of these games are going to generate, is that going to go to the people that helped create those games? Are they going to be getting a pretty significant pay increase, or is it just going to kind of cover the overhead costs of everything to make the game? And is it really just going to kind of help out the CEO? Because honestly, that's kind of bogus. If we can justify a $10 pay increase for these so-called next generation video games, and I knew for a fact it was going to be going to a struggling voice actor or game developers that are under crunch for years on end, and it's going to help benefit them and their salaries will be increased, then yeah, I'm all for it. But I'm not a fan of making the CEOs more money. Now, that is a whole different conversation for a different YouTube channel that I'm not getting into here. We're not going to talk about the state of the world right now when it comes to capitalism. I'm just here to answer the question. Is $70 worth it for a modern generation video game? Truth be told, I hate the $70 price point, but my love of video games and collecting kind of have me in a little bit of a chokehold here, where if it's a specific franchise, I feel that I'm kind of stuck. I'm a struggling parent, right? My wife and I, we're not doing terrible, but it's just my income currently while my daughter is so young. So with us only having the one income, and now games going up to $70, it's kind of harder to justify collecting, which is very frustrating because I really enjoy getting collector's editions. I really enjoy doing all sorts of types of stuff like that. But with games going up in price, it's kind of getting harder and harder to do so. For example, Breath of the Wild's sequel, The Tears of the Kingdom, which we had rumored coming out at $70, which is now accurate. We know that to be true. The collector's edition is $120. Now, is it to say that if it was only a $60 game, the collector's edition would be a little less? Who knows? I don't know. And again, I'm not saying that I am not exactly in a position where I can afford a $70 game, because I could if I really wanted to. But now you have families that may not be able to afford every single big AAA game that comes out for little Johnny or Jimmy or Sabrina or Hillary or whoever. And it's kind of bogus because, like I said, it's not really gonna be going to the voice actors and everything like that. It sucks, man. One argument that I see a lot of the time kind of justifying why video games should be priced at $70 these days and that we shouldn't really be complaining too much is the fact that if you look at ads from video game stores from the 90s, ads that were scanned in, and we could look them up now on the computer, we can see them and stuff like that, you'll see that video games are actually a lot more expensive. One specific example of this that I found was the Sega Genesis, coming in at $99 for just the console itself, whereas the games ranged anywhere from $70 at the high end to $40 on the low end. Now, here's my question to you. Video games back then didn't exactly have everything that video games now do. Did video games back then have hundreds of hours worth of content? DLC coming out within 3 months after the game launching, maybe even 6 months later? Or let's look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for example. I know it's not a $70 game, it's still priced at $59.99. Sometimes you can get it on deal for $55.99, but it's still getting DLC 10 years later. It's been kind of paying for itself over these years. Whereas some of those older games, like Sonic 3D Blast coming in at $69.99, nice, it's not really worth it, in my personal opinion. But again, I guess that's kind of apples to oranges like I mentioned earlier with Celeste, whereas I would pay $70 for Celeste. But Johnny Appleseed over here might not want to pay $70. They might only want to pay $20. So again, how do we come up with that middle ground? Where can we justify? How can we justify the $70 price point? At the end of the day, it's kind of hard for me personally to justify the $10 extra price hike and making every AAA modern day game $70. It is really aggravating. But unfortunately, it is kind of the way the world works. And we could sit here and scream into the ecosystem all day long, Twitter, YouTube, etc., and sit here and talk about how we hate it. But at the end of the day, myself and even you watching this video are most likely going to end up getting those games. And it sucks because everyone always says pay with your wallet and stuff like that. I remember all the controversy around Pokemon and stuff like that. Everybody was saying, oh, you know, it doesn't have the national dex. This is for Sword and Shield. They were saying, oh, it doesn't have the national dex, so we shouldn't be giving them our hard-earned money and stuff like that. It ended up being one of the best-selling Pokemon games of all time. Look at Scarlet and Violet. Same exact thing. Game's selling astronomically well. It's actually on track right now. I think Joe from SarahB.net was saying that it's probably on track to potentially beat Red and Blue, which are the best-selling games of all time for Pokemon. So, you know, people aren't exactly boycotting and paying with their wallets. In fact, every time we see anything about some sort of a boycott, it seems to just kind of get blown up and do the exact opposite of what people were hoping. Look at Bayonetta 3, the Helena Taylor situation. Even look at Hogwarts Legacy right now. The game's selling pretty well, despite, you know, your side of this on that one. Now, again, I like to bring up specific games and ask, would you be willing to pay $70 for this? So let's look at my catalog real quick. Just gonna pick out a game. Let's do something relatively recent and something a little older. I have two games here. I have Fire Emblem Engage, just came out, January, right? I have Cruis'n Blast, okay? Came out a couple years ago. Fire Emblem Engage has hundreds of hours. Is this game justified at $70? Now granted, I know it's not $70 right now. Okay, I get that. And it's not every single game. So far, we only know on the Nintendo Switch that Tears of the Kingdom are $70. But why is Fire Emblem Engage worth $70? Or potentially in this scenario be $70, but Cruis'n Blast isn't. Whereas in Cruis'n Blast could be someone's favorite game ever. So it's, to me, it's kind of interesting that we just have people that go, well, you know what, this one's worth it, or this one's not. It's, why not keep it at a nice even middle ground, $50? That way, the ease of entry is a little easier, and you have families that can come in and get it. Because even if you sell millions of copies at $50, you're still going to turn a profit. A majority of these games, especially Nintendo Switch games. But I don't know. I'm not a businessman. I'm not going to sit here and, you know, try to tell a company what they can and can't do and with their price points and stuff like that. I understand there's overhead costs. They have to pay their workers, stuff like that. And again, if I knew for a fact that the workers were going to be getting extra, the ones that put their hard work, blood, sweat, tears, okay? I'm a union guy. I'm 100% about solidarity, 100% about seizing the means of production. We need them to be making more. Because then if they're happy and satisfied and making more, we will get bigger and better content. So if I knew for a fact that charging people $70 for a AAA video game was going to make sure that Bobby over there, lead designer of whatever, is going to get a little extra to take home and could, you know, feed his family a little more, I'm all for it, man. I really am. But if it's just going to go to freaking John B, CEO, fuck him. Pardon my French. I don't know. I'm torn. It's such a tricky situation. I'm seeing a bunch of people talk about it. I've seen simps on both sides of the coin here on Twitter, and honestly, just do whatever at the end of the day. Do what you're gonna do. I personally think it sucks, but hey, I'm just one guy yelling into a microphone on the internet. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching my videos, liking, subscribing, everything. How do you feel about the $70 AAA price point right now? Do you think it sucks ass, like the majority of us, or are you okay with spending a little extra because you know that certain games are going to be worth it because you're getting your money's worth by spending hundreds of hours in? Let me know down below in the comments. Again, thank you guys so much. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.